Hello and welcome MLTV viewers to another edition of Tell Us More with Richard and Anne. I am author Richard Linton along with author Anne Scardino, and our desire is to introduce you to some interesting people who are making a difference, whether it be in the business world, art, entertainment, music or politics.
Our guests might be your neighbors along the main line or in the Philadelphia area. We want to find out how they got their start, what drives them each day to keep going, and what their next steps may be. And today we are especially excited to have with us Bill Mignucci Jr., President and CEO of the Bruno Brothers, which is certainly a name synonymous with quality. Anyone who has been to one of the Bruno Brothers' 6 locations knows that quality firsthand. So welcome, Bill Mignucci Jr.
Thank you, Anne and Richard. I'm in great company this morning. Thank you for that introduction.
That's so great to see you, Bill.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. We know you're a very busy man, I should say. Busy businessman.
Thank you.
And you have 6 locations all around the Philadelphia and mainline area. And we'll get to all those locations. But I think the thing that we're most interested in knowing is how this all began, where you had this wonderful store with cheeses mostly in the beginning, right? You were the house of cheese. So will you tell us how it all began?
Of course. You know, what makes the Bruno Brothers part of the fabric of Philadelphia, and I love saying that, is there is a wonderful story behind the store, and stores, I should say. And I think that's what people are so impressed with and love the Bruno so much, because there's a story of, you know, I like to call it the American dream. My grandfathers and uncles came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. They had a 3rd grade education, but most importantly, they really wanted to establish and put food on the table for their family.
So that was Danny and Joe.
Danny and Joe.
1939, was it?
So they came over earlier. They started their first store in 1939, but they came over probably about 5 years earlier. Right. And, you know, in those days, you came over with, you know, not even a suitcase. You know, they had one suit. You know, my grandfather always wore a tie, even at the Italian market.
Oh my
with
God.
his apron on, he had a button-up shirt and a tie. And, you know, to me, that represented how important his brand was back then, his reputation. He wanted to be part of the neighborhood, and he took his profession very seriously.
Do you know how much money they had with them? Because you know how people say they had $10 in their pocket. Did that go, do you know?
I'd be surprised if it was $10. It was probably less than $10. I think they had a lot of pride. That was their currency.
Still had pride.
A lot of pride and work ethic. I think the money in your pocket back then was it was really the dream, right?
And where in Italy were they from?
So they were from the Abruzzi region.
Abruzzi?
Yeah, Abruzzi, which is Abruzzi. And my grandmother's from Sicily, so there was a little Sicilian roots as well.
Yes.
But I'd say from the very beginning, they came to put their name on the map here in the country, and they did that. In the very beginning, it was very important. It was called the Bruno Brothers. Yep. And really, the origins are that they started in the pursuit of the American dream, and what's amazing is, you know, 83 years later, that dream continues, and that's really rare. It's really rare to have a 3rd generation continue on the family legacy. There's a lot of, hey, let's face it, there's a lot of room for error in multiple generations. And I think we're so grateful that Danny and Joe's legacy is still alive and well, even though we've grown significantly. It's very important that we keep the roots, and our legacy is part of the Bruno experience. So that's why I think the Bruno story is so special. We represent something more than just a specialty food store, but a family business that's achieved the American dream.
So how did your relatives start this? Like, weren't they scared to do this? I mean, they didn't have a lot of education from what you said. Like, how did they know what to do?
Right. Well, you know, like many Italian immigrants, they were merchants of food. Right. So it became, you know, they were, for better or worse, hucksters, you know. So the Italian market was where many of the Italians landed. They would go to Mulberry Street often, or Lower Manhattan, or a lot of the Abruzzes. People came to Philadelphia, and hey, it's all they knew, you know. It's all they knew. And really, I'd say it was the along with other Italians, the community. Okay, it was a community that supported each other, and through being merchants, and that is what's unique. There wasn't necessarily banking, so somebody had to support you and believe in you. And my grandfather, why I believe the Brunos is so successful even today, he had this amazing charisma. Yeah. He was someone that people trusted. He again felt his
was Danny.
Danny, yeah. Joe is more the bull, right? They used to call him Joey Bags because he would carry all the bags of wheat and flour. But Danny was charming.
Do you know the black and white photo that we're going to show? Do you remember which one is which on the left or right?
Oh, sure. So Danny's the one with the tie on the left.
Okay, great.
And again, I cannot find a picture of my grandfather in all the years, and we have thousands of pictures where he doesn't have a tie on underneath his apron. Right. Now, what's very interesting is he would have a button-up shirt, a white shirt, a tie, apron, and then in the 70s have a cigarette out of his mouth, right?
Wow.
In the store.
Hey, that's what they did back then.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, Bill, what about you? Because what I found fascinating when I was, reading up about you more, because obviously I've known you for 20 years. My wife is like, oh, go to the Bruno brothers.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not from here, but, my wife is, Michelle. But so what fascinated me was the grandmother story and the fact that at 21 years old, we've got a great picture of you and Emilia, your cousin, who was at culinary school at the time. But, you got these two 21-year-olds who were heading off to California, but then tell us the little story about your grandmother and her, maybe the twinkle in her eye persuading you, if you wouldn't mind.
My pleasure. It really did. It happened one night. I had no expectations or intentions of carrying on the family business. Let's say, the old school mentality, my grandfather said, I'm going to die in a store and then you all will figure it out.
Oh, geez.
But, he was just in love with his business, though. It was all he knew. Yeah. So he couldn't, succession planning was not was not on anyone's radar. Right. And although people tried to have conversations with Uncle Joe and my grandfather Danny, they were very proud and they believed that they were going to live forever, I guess, But then suddenly, as he came on some health issues, there was some concern with the Bruno brothers, the little cheese shop, the Italian market, the iconic
House
Carry
of
On,
Cheese at that
House of
point,
Cheese.
right?
And although there were some conversations, they really couldn't break through getting Danny and Joe to subscribe to some kind of sale or evolution. And my grandmother, who I grew up very close with my whole life, used to tell me, I remember, I love your grandfather, but he's married to his business, and he'll give up his family, his health for the business. Billy, learn from him. Right. Don't be like him in that regard, okay? Understand family is important, and your health and life is. There's other, and I'd say, I'd listen. And then one night when I was at my grandparents' house, the tables turned. My grandfather suddenly says, why are you going to California? And I said, well, maybe I'll start a cheese shop. And he goes, well, there's one here in Philly. Why don't you take that over? Well, that was like, chills went up my spine. Excuse me? Wow. Danny never talked about anyone. He goes, I think that you could do well. You've worked there in your holiday. You worked there, throughout the holidays and growing up. And I was stunned. I was like, pass the wine. I don't think I'm hearing him right. And then
this is when you were 21.
Yeah, I was
just out of Drexel. So you went to Drexel.
I graduated Drexel, and I literally was on my way to California. This was like the last supper I was having with my grandparents before I went.
What were you going to do in California?
Find myself.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I was,
It's very zen before
I mean, like many people graduating college, it was, I had a friend out there who had an apartment. He invited me there. And
so you were literally going to leave the next week?
Oh, I was headed to Redondo Beach with an apartment.
All set up. Wow.
I was there a few times and fell in love with just, 21-year-old. And I was going to be a beach bum for a while, I guess.
I bet that went over well with the relatives, right?
Well, I think it was strategic that, my mother spoke to my grandfather and said, hey, let's get Billy to stay. But on top of that, I turned to my grandmother and she, again, like I said, unexpectedly said, you know what, you'd be really good at it. And I said, You too. I said, I can't believe. I said, all these years. She goes, I know, but if you find something you love, you don't work a day in your life. Your grandfather loves his business. And there's something about the two of you that I see in each other. And I was just stunned, and I really just went with the moment. I was inside. I had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I did know how special the Brunos was. And I said, well, if I'm ever going to take a chance, let's do this. Literally that night, I called my cousin Emilio, who was working at
I've met Emilio,
a renowned restaurant at the time. It was called Lulo Centro, right? It was on Broad and Locust. It was a famous Philadelphia Italian restaurant, and he was a sous chef there, but he was just the work, and he was tired. And even the young age, he's like, I will do anything to try something other than the restaurant business.
Sort of left culinary school at that point.
Yeah, he went to culinary school, and he was just working. I mean, he loved the Lulos. He really did.
You said you want to do this?
I said, come to Grandmom's after your shift tonight.
Boy.
Tonight.
I'm
going to have a real business meeting at Grandma's table. Right?
I'm drinking some cheap wine with Grandma and Grandpa, but I got this crazy idea that I'm going to take over the Bruno Brothers, and I need a partner. And he was having like the worst week of his culinary career, and he's like, I'm in. I'll be over after my shift.
Oh my goodness.
He came over, and this was a Thursday night, and I remember we ended up gathering the family over the weekend, and everybody was going with the momentum of this hope. That, the Brunos had another chapter to it. Yeah, and
because let's face it, there are so many businesses in this world, and the fact that yours has been around for literally, more than well over half a century. Why didn't you tell us? One of my questions was,
sustainability.
What is it? What is it?
I mean, really?
Do you think? What would you advise? What advice would you give to other people who want to start up either particularly in the food industry? What advice would you give them at the very early stage? And I also wanted to ask you, what would you say is good to study at college these days?
The Drexel connections, that was very important to you, I understand.
The first question is it has to be more than economics or money. It really does. There has to be a level of passion. Right. Now, passion is really important, but it's an overused word. Right. Passion, you can have a passion for a hobby or music, but when you have I'd say a passion for a business, you're going to have to understand sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I guess so I just felt that the Brunos, I wasn't really sure it was economically the right decision to make, but I knew that it was important. It was meaningful to my family. I knew I had what I would call a servant's heart. I enjoyed service. I enjoyed
people person, right? You're a people person.
And I just imagined, boy, I'll have plenty of opportunities to pursue other things, but how often do you have the opportunity to take over a family business that's been around for generations and is revered? So I would say the decision for a young entrepreneur needs to come as much from the heart as the mind.
Yep.
Because if you think about it too much, you could talk yourself out of it. But your heart kind of knows.
And the studies, what would you recommend that people really need to study, say, if they do want to go in this direction?
I think that entrepreneurism, is something you don't really learn much in school. Right. And it's something that you'll learn through the process. I don't think there's any curriculum that you can take that could prepare you for an entrepreneur. I think it's challenging yourself to just think differently sometimes. So it's not like, boy, if you're a finance major, you're going to do much better than an engineer. Entrepreneurism, communication's important. But I think it's, again, intellectually, I think somewhat overrated when you start your own business. I think your heart needs to push you more than your mind. And then there's a time and place where we'll call it financials and strategy come in play. But the early years of running your own business need to be come from the heart, not the intellect. Because otherwise you'll talk yourself out of it. There's a lot of reasons not to do an entrepreneurial venture. Now, I would say we were very lucky. We had a wonderful brand.
I think you were more than, your stuff is amazing. So you're at the helm for over 30 years now as president and CEO. So I think you should tell our viewers about your 6 locations and particularly about, in March of this year, the wonderful Wayne store.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about the Bruno Brothers is we have evolved with, I think, the times. And so being in retail, I think you have to continue to understand at least specialty retail, differentiate yourself and think of how you continue to make, we could always have wonderful cheese and prosciutto, but so do other people.
Right.
So how do we attract people to Bruno's and Caniglia? And we've really emphasized hospitality. Hospitality along with food is really important. What do I mean by hospitality? Hospitality is how you make people feel, not what you do for them. And we like to say, and there's a saying, Danny Meyer, who started Shake Shack. And,
I like a good Shake Shack burger.
Yeah, and he has a Union Square Hospitality, and he wrote a book setting the table, and he said, hospitality is when you make somebody feel better when they leave than when they came in. And we subscribe to that. So over the years, as we've evolved from the cheese shop, the Italian market, we've taken the philosophy of celebrating great food and great people. We evolved into Center City, Philadelphia in the 90s. We found ourselves at the Ardmore Farmers Market, the Comcast Center, the Franklin Market at 9th and Sampson, and more recently we've opened up our store in Wayne, and that is really a unique store.
Oh my God, I love it there. You know what I love the most about it? Is you can sit and dine at the bar. You can sit at tables if you get some of your prepared food, or you can order off the menu. And you sit amongst everything gorgeous, beautiful wine bottles and prepared foods and meats and cheeses and seafood. And it's lively and it's fun. It's a great meeting place.
Well, and I'll tell you the little secret is Bruno's is a place to eat, shop, and learn, and people watch.
Oh,
and
people watching.
Right, and so I think Wayne putting our bar Alimentari, which is our restaurant, in the center of the store makes it to be like an Italian piazza in some ways, where you're dining.
Especially if Emilio comes over and starts chatting with you.
And he will.
Is amazing.
Well, I was going to say that. I last summer, I think we were in Venice, and there was this little cafe. I don't know what you would know what they call it, but Di Fiore, and I couldn't believe in the morning the Italians were going to drink wine, right?
They had the wine.
And then the tasters and snacks. So, tell us why you just said that your Wayne store is so unusual and different.
Yeah. Amazing.
I think based on a hospitality, right? When people feel good. And it's not just about shopping, but it's about eating and learning, celebrating great food and great people. And creating it, listen, we're creating food theater.
Yeah.
That is, if you can elevate,
well said,
if you can, I like to say, why has the Reading Terminal been so successful for years? Because it's a food theater.
And
so if we can create a little micro food theater at the Bruno Brothers, it becomes a shopping destination, an eating destination. I like learning about new products and people and recipes.
Oh, your products.
So I would say that the Bruno Brothers has evolved into a destination for eating, shopping, and learning. And I think that's what's newest about our operations. Alimentari's brought this food experience of eating in an environment where people are shopping. And it creates, when you do it right, it creates a magical energy. And it's fun. People are huckstering.
Oh, exactly.
People are yelling across the store. You see friends, and it becomes like a piazza vibe.
You know, I was in there at Easter, and Emilio was chatting with us. I was having dinner with my family. My family lives here in Villanova, and they just love the store too. And he was pointing out to us these beautiful Easter cakes that you have. I don't know if a lot of people realize that you have people where you buy things from all over the world, like different food type things.
That's right.
I mean, how did you forge all these relationships with all these people and keep track of everything at 6 locations? It blows my mind.
And on the back of that, is there a favorite location, I'm presuming Italy, that you do like to go? I know you got something from Switzerland. There was some cheese shop in Switzerland.
Sure.
But on top of that question, where do you love to go and find these things?
Yeah, I'm very inspired by, just any city in Italy can be inspiring from a food point of view, right? But going to Rome is always fun because you get the street food vibe. Yeah. And then but again, what's unique about Italy, which is, it's still a small country relative to the United States, the food experiences throughout from Florence to Milan.
Yes.
It's like different countries. So Italy gives us this diverse, in a small square miles, of diverse food experiences. So I do I have a favorite? I love them all. I know that's a cliche, but I think each one offers some uniqueness. Like, I mean, if you go down to Calabria, the authenticity of the Mediterranean seafood, it doesn't get any better. But then if you're in Milan, the sophistication of a veal Milanese is, so it's really hard for me to just, pick one.
Yeah.
But back to your question, what I'd say is the Bruno Brothers has, because of our legacy and Danny and Joe and brand, we've been able to forge relationships. We are, one of the better specialty food operators in the country.
Well, that's what I wanted to hone in on, because your meats, I understand there's a whole story of how they're fed and like they're so wholesome and all the stuff that you do. Could you tell us about that a little bit? Because I find that so interesting.
I think partnering with vendors who are really, product specialists. Okay, so really, we rely on our vendors and our network.
Right.
We are kind of the stage that we embrace great products and celebrate them, right, and tell the story. I love the philosophy of storytelling and shopkeeping. If we keep storytelling and shopkeeping alive and well to Bruno's, and that's what Danny and Joe did. They were storytellers. Okay, you would walk in.
Most
and they
Italians are.
Yeah, right. It's like charisma. When you have a 200-pound wheel of cheese, 200 pounds, bigger than this table, people are in awe of it. And when you tell them the story that the cheese is from Switzerland, aged in caves by a cave master for 8 to 12 months, and it's poked every couple of months to get its texture and flavor. That's the storytelling around a product that you can take to your friends and family. And it's, shopkeeping is about that hospitality. So I would say really a lot of our expertise comes from our vendors. From our meats, our cheeses, always looking for the latest discovery. So we call ourselves culinary pioneers, and it's about
all
discovery.
over the world, you have stuff coming in.
What countries are we talking about?
Where's the beef coming from?
Spain, France, Italy. We have an amazing partner in the UK, Neil's Yard Dairy. So we don't discriminate. If it tastes good, we welcome you to the Bruno's. It's not all from Italy, right? But what's also important is being the Bruno's is a platform, a stage for local food entrepreneurs. We want to be that stage and that platform where you can bring, if you're a Philadelphia entrepreneur, you can bring some great products to the market and use the Bruno's to do so.
What was your first job at the store? I know you started when you were a teenager, right? Or
when I was hanging around the store
when I was a kid, I think my mother would in the summer dish me off to my grandmother's house for a couple of weeks, and filling vinegar bottles in the basement of the 9th Street store. We had these old barrels with aged vinegar.
No, how old were you?
I was probably I'm going to say 12.
Oh my goodness!
Maybe 14.
Whole life, right?
And I'd go downstairs and it was dark. All right, and there was a lot of little noises around. Can you imagine? Because the mice know a good cheese shop when they find one, right?
Yeah.
And I remember turning on the light bulb hanging from the ceiling. I had to turn a light. The light would go on.
God.
That's how you turned it on.
Right, and then it was me with these barrels on a little milk crate filling these vinegars. And my grandfather used to give me 5 cases of empty bottles and send me down there. And I tell you, I was scared to go down in that basement first. But then
I know.
So that's where everybody, I think, starts is filling the vinegar bottles.
Yeah.
And those barrels, those barrels had 100-year-old, I was told the myth is the mother of the vinegar, the grapes, which gave it the flavor.
I love a good balsamic vinegar.
For sure.
That. But the subject I must ask you about that is very dear to my heart and to yours is charity. And that's how I know you and Bruno's from your work with the Philadelphia Ronald McDonald House, where I've been involved for over 22 years myself.
That's right.
So I would be at many events and a whole catering group would come in and long tables filled with everything from the Bruno's.
Wow.
Always giving to charity, and I know it means so much to you. Dr. Audrey Evans, one of the founders of the Philadelphia Ronald McDonald House in 1974, along with Jimmy Murray, then general manager of the Eagles, owned by Leonard Toews at that time. And what is it about charity, and particularly the Philadelphia Ronald McDonald House? Because I know it's in my heart the first moment I stepped in the door there as a volunteer. What is it about it that is so important to you?
It is. There's so many great organizations in Philadelphia. So I'll I'll attribute it to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection.
Perfect
as we
name,
say,
right? Perfect name.
Is there something about the city of Philadelphia that's still very much neighborhoodish?
Yes.
And when you're embraced by Philadelphia and you're part of the fabric of Philadelphia, it's really, it's a no-brainer to find organizations that represent Philadelphia so well. And listen, food is a common denominator from everyone. It is really easy. We get way too much credit sometimes to bring some wonderful cheese, charcuterie to events.
Table gone completely out the door. I've seen it myself.
And you know you know us Italians, we know we don't go small when it comes to food, all right?
Nothing small
we
about
never
it.
Run out. There's always, so we end up over abundance. We call it abbondanza, right?
Yes.
But the truth is, really, Philadelphia's embraced the Bruno so well, and it's easy. It becomes a no-brainer. So I just get inspired by the city of Philadelphia. And there's so many great organizations that are making a difference. And then all you have to do is meet people like Audrey Evans, Dr. Audrey Evans. And if you're not inspired by these, iconic people who've made a difference, and you, and the board, of course.
There's so many volunteers, and we started the first house in 1974, and there's over like 380 around the world now. It's pretty amazing. And it just warms your heart, doesn't it?
There's something about the Philadelphia, it's called Philadelphia grit. It's the underdog in all of us, right? There's something about it. So if it's the Philadelphia around that, Phil Abundance, Manna.
Little Smiles.
Little Smiles is an excellent organization, and the St. James School. So I would say it's just a natural calling for us. Now, I would say, it came from my grandfather, Danny, and Uncle Joe, who said the community is very important. The Italian market was his and their community. And there's stories of people who needed loans or needed help, and Danny and Joe and the other Italian merchants would always rally around each other. So I think that was the origins of our charitable giving, and now our community is just much larger than the Italian market. And,
there are many business people that don't give to charity, and you have made it the fabric of your life, and it's just an amazing thing that you do.
Well, thank you. And I would say once again, if you're running your business from your heart, first and foremost, don't get me wrong, there's bills to pay and there's opportunities and challenges.
Right.
But if your heart's it is a pretty natural decision, at least in Philadelphia, to participate. And there's so many other wonderful organizations in the food community that give like we do. So, we're just paying it forward and cascading the spirit.
But what do you do? We're getting close to the end of the show, but what do you do when you're not working? Like, where do you like to go?
Work?
What do you do, Bill?
What do I do?
Maybe you should ask Bill's wife.
I would say that it's a great question. I don't think I do. Enjoy. I'll have to tell you, it's been over 30 years. I took over Bruno when I was 21, and I still, enjoy coming to work. And some days are going to be better than others. Right. And I believe the best is yet to come for this amazing organization. 400 people we have working at the Bruno.
Oh my gosh.
And we have our 6 stores. We are in 2,000 stores in 42 states.
That's
some of our products. Then we have a catering division.
Unbelievable.
So that keeps me quite busy. Okay. Outside of that, I got 3 amazing children, an amazing wife of 26 years.
How old are your children?
We have a 21-year-old, 17-year-old, and then I have my Alexandria, who's 10 years old.
Oh my God! And you live here on the main line, right?
I do. I live right in Villanova as
right
well.
Here in the neighborhood.
And I would say
you haven't got that much time for anything else. Do you go to the gym? Do you go running?
Thank you. I try to go to gym occasionally because I only go to the gym to work off the food I eat.
Because pretty fit to me.
But I would just say, the Bruno's is a big part of my life, both social and work, and it's not always work.
Beautiful.
Philadelphia is a great city. The main line has embraced us amazingly well. So,
well, maybe they should make a movie too. They're making a movie on Audrey's children, which I saw your logo on the website.
On Dr. Evans, sure.
But maybe someone should write a movie script about yours.
I know.
Generations.
Well, we must just ask finally, do you have any things to tell us about the Wayne store? Are you going to expand in any way, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, I would say the Wayne store is a real model of what we would call the Bruno evolution of our store. It's eating, shopping, learning, creating a food theater. And I'd say there's been, there's always thoughts of another food theater. We want to make sure that we keep that legacy strong. The Italian market market store. We're very much part of that whole neighborhood. We have a bottle shop there.
Oh, yes, the
and
bottle
the Bruno
shop, right?
Piazza.
Yeah.
So coming out of COVID, we're all adjusting to the new normal. And I see great things in our future.
Is Wayne your favorite store now? Do you love it?
It's our newest store. I got to be careful if I say favorite.
I'm not going to push you.
But I would say it's really representing what we think the Brunos will continue to evolve into this a destination of eating, shopping, learning, celebrating great food, great people. And we're real proud of it.
Bill,
you should
thank you. It's just such a pleasure to meet you.
An honor.
Well, thank you.
An honor.
You both make it very easy. I could stay here for another half
I've seen Bill
hour.
walk into the Rittenhouse store and say to the whole staff, "Hello, how's your day going?" I've seen it. So thank you.
We're out of time. Bill, it has been so interesting to hear your story about your family business, the Bruno Brothers. You can find out everything that the Bruno Brothers has to offer by going to their website, debruno.com. That's DIBRUNO.com.
And both my book, A Tangled Affair, and Richard's book, From Cottage to Palace, on Amazon. Thanks for joining us today. And until next time, when we'll tell you more.